Hey, so I'm going to be giving an introduction to feedback in GLSL shaders. And I'm going to start with just doing a really simple example in Shadertoy. And then I'm going to rebuild this dilated shape shader in a kind of simplified form in TouchDesigner. And the reason I'm doing this is I personally had a hard time with this concept of multi-pass shaders. I saw a lot of really cool shaders using them, but I didn't understand it. This whole thing with buffers. And I also had a hard time understanding feedback in Touch Designer. It seemed sort of magical and a little bit illogical to me. But I've spent some time to understand it, and it's actually kind of simple. So hopefully this will help somebody else who's having similar difficulties. So just starting off with a new shader toy here. So what we're essentially going to be implementing is a feedback lag effect. So let me just show the finished result here. So as you see, Brittany's moving and there's a little bit of lag. It sort of looks like you're under the influence of something. Um, and in order to do that, what we need to do is mix the previous frame's output with the current frame. And in a new shader toy right here, we have these various channels which can read inputs in. However, there's no way to get the previous frame's output right here. In order to do that, we need a buffer. So I'm going to start off by creating one. And this right now is just outputting a solid blue color. You can't see it because you only see the output of the image shader. And I should mention, these are each individual shaders. So again, we have a solid blue color coming out of here. And what we want to do is read that from this shader. So I'm going to click on this I channel 0 here and click buffer A. That's going to be the output of this buffer. And now I'm going to use the sample function or texture function um, to read that value. So it's going to be vec4 color equals texture I channel 0 with the UV value. And then we're just going to output that right here. And we should see a solid blue color, right? And if we change this to something else, that'll just get updated. So what I want to do here is take in this Britney Spears footage right here. All right, so that's now an I channel 0. So we can sample that in this buffer A. And right now we should, right, so we need to output this. Frag color equals color. And there you go. So it's coming from this channel input into buffer A, and then it's going into the image. Okay, so now we need to read the previous frame's output. So we have another channel here, which there's a special input here called buffer A, which is exactly what we need. And we're going to, again, use the texture function to sample that. And I'm going to rename these variables. So this one's going to be the orig, and this one's going to be the previous. And what we're going to output here is just a mix from previous to orig based on some blend value. So mix just interpolates between these two values based on a number between 0 and 1. And the blend value that I'm going to use for starters is 0.2, which is basically saying we're going to take in 2% of the original and 98% of the previous frame. And what we're going to see straight away is that blur effect. So if I bring this lower, you're going to see like complete blur, like hardly any movement at all. And if I bring it higher up, let's say 0.3, you're going to see hardly any blurring. So you really need a lot of previous and very few of the original to see this effect in action. So that's kind of the gist of it. And now I'm going to show how to do this in Touch Designer. So I have this movie file in here. This is a clip from Eyes Without a Face. It's a French horror movie from 1960. I think it has some cool visuals, so I like sampling it. And I'm going to do like the simplest feedback possible in Touch Designer, which is to create a feedback top and then a cross top. This cross top is essentially the same thing as this mix function here. It just takes two inputs and blends between them. And what I'm going to do here is click on my feedback and then drag the cross into this target top right here. So what this means is The feedback is basically representing the output of this crosstalk right here. So since it's not possible to take this output and plug it into itself, because that'll cause errors, what you need to use is the feedback. Um, and so this is basically doing the same thing as taking this output and plugging it in. And the input to the feedback is the initial value. So when I press pulse here, the feedback right then it matches this value. But after that point, it never again matches that. This input only matters on the first frame when you click pulse. After that point, it's using the output of whatever is the target top. So I know it's a little bit of a tricky concept, um, but yeah, essentially, this feedback can be seen as the previous frame's value coming from this top. All right, so what does our cross top needs? It needs the previous frame's value as well as the original, right? And then we're just going to use the same cross slider here. And let me see, did I screw this up? Let's see, I think I maybe, oh, sorry, I'm still not visualizing that one. That's why it's not showing anything. Okay. Yeah, so now when I bring this cross low, we're going to see this same blurring effect as I showed in Shadertoy. And then I'm just going to show how to do this in GLSL, which is pretty much the same thing. I'm going to take a GLSL. Sorry, actually, I'm going to create a feedback and then a GLSL. And the GLSL is just going to do our crossing for us. So I'm going to drag that GLSL onto the feedback here. And let's go ahead and create a uniform. Let's call this amount. And I'm just going to set it as 0.2 for now. And then our GLSL is going to be reading from two things. This feedback here is representing this iChannel 1 previous frame data. And then we need to bring the original in, which is from here. And then if we go into our editor, I'm going to press Control E to open this up in my proper text editor, which is Sublime. I also like Visual Studio Code. In order to do that, what you want to do is edit preferences and then go to data and then go to text editor here and then pick your executable. And then when you press Control E on a DAT, it'll open that just directly in the text editor, which is really cool. So what I'm going to do right now is create a uniform float, which is a mount that's reading from this parameter, keep in mind. And okay, sorry, I think I lost that there. Uniform float amount. And then we're going to read from our first input right here. Let's call this prev, and then read from the original input, which is in the next one here. And then just mix between them. This is basically the same code as in Shadertoy. So let's say vec4 output equals, that looks, out color equals mix, prev, orig, amount, and then just send that to the result here. And yeah, here we're seeing our blur effect, and we can of course change this value here to get more or less blurring. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm showing the wrong thing again. So let me just bring this back down. So yeah, here we're seeing blurring, right? Here we're not. So yeah, that works the same way. So that's kind of the intro to feedback in shaders. And now I'm going to get going on this dilated shape shader here. So this one's a little more complicated. Yeah, give me 1 second. Let me take a sip of water. Okay, so yeah. Unfortunately, we can't really see these buffer A and buffer B outputs very easily. One way we could do that is go into this image function right here and just delete all this stuff and just say like frag color equals texture I channel 0 with UV, and then that will just bring in whatever is coming from this B buffer here. So now you can see what's going on. It's this weird kind of stepped halo effect, which is really all you need. This is sort of the magic of this effect here. And if we look at the channel A here, let's check that out. This is basically just a alpha mask. So it's basically just building a black and white image by removing the green from the green screen. So we're not really going to end up needing this, but I'll just bring it in anyway, just to show kind of another example of how to turn Shadertoy stuff into TouchDesigner shaders. Now, I should mention there is a library called TD Shadertoy, which you can search for. It's on GitHub. And I have a patched version of that, which is more simplified and it's a little easier to customize. I don't think it works with as many cases, but if you want that, please leave a comment and I'll send it to you. But if you want to auto import shaders from Shadertoy into TouchDesigner, look up TD dash Shadertoy on GitHub. And that was actually broken, not to toot my own horn, but I submitted a fix to that. So it's working now. Because it's such an awesome tool, and it was really such a shame that it was broken. So I just had to do a little Python fix in there. So anyway, okay, let's go ahead and look at this shader a little bit. So we have this main image shader, which is reading from each of the buffer outputs as well as the original footage here. We have this buffer B, which is reading from its own output as well as buffer A's output. Buffer A is only reading from the green screen footage. So this is a good place to start. So I'm just basically going to copy all this stuff here. Sorry. And go into TouchDesigner, and I'm going to go down here and create another GLSL. And let me just go ahead and turn my display flag off there. And remember, this GLSL doesn't need feedback because it doesn't read its own output. So just going to edit this one and just start by pasting all this stuff in here. We're going to take this main image function and just kind of smush that into our own and just delete that. And then there's just a little bit of stuff you got to do to make this work with TouchDesigner. So we already have the UV. It's this VUVST, so I can just replace that right here. Also, this texture sampler has to change. We just have a different name for our source. And that actually should do it in and of itself, I do believe. So now here's the thing about this particular one, right? This is specifically doing green screen masking. Our footage is not green, right? So do I have an error here? No. So basically what we can do, like just to see that this is working with our footage, is just try and convert this to green screen footage artificially just for testing. So I'll just add a lookup because this is black and white footage. It's pretty easy. And then I'll just make a ramp and then I'll plug that ramp in here. And this ramp, let's just say we'll turn the blacks into a green color here. And already we can see some stuff happening with our lookup function. Now, what is going on with my, okay, I see it. There is an error here. So line 42, something's wrong with that. I'm missing a semicolon. Perfect. Yeah, so here we can see our green screen footage in action. How I can change this, I go into this ramp. I'm going to change this interpolate notches to step. And now you can see when I move this little slider, I'm sort of controlling the thresholding, and it's sort of creating a two-tone effect here. Yeah, this is sort of inverted, so I suppose I should do that. Yeah, now exactly. So that's cool. Anyway, so let's get going on to our next shader in this system here, this buffer B, which is sort of the magic. And this is actually a relatively simple shader. We're just going to have to make use of those feedback concepts. So let's just start by copying this and creating a new GLSL shader here. And just bring this over this way. Let me just do a little cleanup here. Alrighty then. And I'm going to edit this one. And let's just kind of see what's going on in here. So we have this offset variable. I noticed is actually not used, so I'm just going to delete that. we have these spread and decay variables. So right off the bat, I'm actually just going to make these into uniforms because I know I'm going to need to edit that. Set the initial values, and then go into here, and let's just change these to uniforms. Uniform float spread and uniform float decay. Cool. And now let's look at what's actually going on in the shader. So we have resolution coming from iResolution XY. iResolution is not built into TouchDesigner shader. So if you want to do this kind of really like without thinking, you can just make a new uniform res and just say like me.width and me.height. Okay, and then read that as a uniform vec2 res. And then we don't even need that. Now there's also, if you Google GLSL Touch Designer built-in uniforms, this actually is built into Touch Designer shaders. So let me try and find where this is. Yeah, so it's right here. It's actually this UTD 2D info 0 res. So let me just show this real quick. So vec2 res equals res ZW. So yeah, this is if you want to just like not set up a uniform, you can type this, but I find this hard to remember, so I usually just like add a uniform for it. But these are the same thing anyway. So yeah, now we have some variable, and then we have a UV. We don't need this UV parameter because we already have UVs, so we can just use that value. Now let's look at our texture samplers. So the iChannel 0 in this case is channel A, which is the other buffer. So let's just actually pass that in here. We're already doing that. So that's cool. We can just use std2d inputs 0 right here. Yeah. And then this next one is actually reading from its own output. So what we want to do here is insert a feedback. That's how we're going to read from our own output, and just pass that to the target top and plug this into the sorry. So right, this will need to go into the second input, and this one will need the original footage will need to go into the first. All right. So let's just fix up our texture samplers here. Read from the second, and actually this should do it, I do believe. Oh, sorry, I forgot to move all this stuff into this one. Hopefully this just works. Oh my, there we are. So that worked, amazing. First try. So yeah, so the thing is like this footage is actually not really good for demonstrating this effect. So I'm actually going to just show you something else. I'm going to use some other footage. I'm actually going to skip this for a shader because all this is doing is creating a white on black image with like alpha. So um, let me just run with me. So I got this banana right here, and I'm going to plug in a transform. Okay, and then I'm just going to rotate this with abs seconds dot time times 50. Oh wait, sorry, abs time dot seconds times 50. And now that banana is going to go in a circle. And I just want this to be black and white. So I'm sure there's a way to do this with Touch Designer like nodes, but sometimes I don't really know what all the honestly I don't know what all everything in here does. Touch Designer can be pretty idiosyncratic. Um, yeah, and so I'm just going to do this with GLSL. So what I'm gonna sample this image here and just be like, if color A is greater than 0, color equals vec4 1.0. That's going to make it white. Else color equals vec4 0.0. That's going to make it black. So now we have our white black mask. I should mention It is advised to try not to use if else in shaders. There is like a way to avoid doing it, but just keep that in mind. If you really want to optimize your shaders, use like mix instead of if else, or smooth step or something like that. Um, I'm not really a shader whiz, but yeah. So anyway, here we have this, and now I should have put a null right here so that I could switch out that footage, but it's easy enough. So let's just clean this up as smidge. Right, so now we're looking over here, and I'm just going to plug my banana instead of the original footage. And now let's look at what we have. So kind of like what we had in Shadertoy, and I'm just going to play with these parameters a bit. So this spread one essentially says how big each of these rings are. And then the decay is, bigger decay means that it'll die faster. So if you want like a smaller spread of rings, you set the decay higher. If you want, if you wanted to like fill the whole image, you set this to something real small. So this is pretty much like the magic. Um, and yeah, if you want to look into actually what this shader is doing here, um, it is basically um, it's basically sampling each pixel's neighbors and it's finding the maximum. Um, and by itself, what that'll do is dilate the image. So that'll actually just grow the image according to its boundaries, which is a cool effect in and of itself. But when you add in this decay and the feedback, that's how you get these like rings which fall off in intensity. And if you're familiar with TouchDesigner, you'll know. I mean, you see this thing right here, and you think of a lookup because the lookup will allow you to recolor this based on the gradient between black and white. So kind of instantly we can get some color here using a lookup and a ramp. And actually, not a ramp. Let's use noise. We can use a ramp or noise, but I'm going to use colored noise. Um, let's just say it has 100 width and 1 pixel high, and just plug that into its lookup here. And then, wowee, look at that rainbow banana. So I'm actually just going to transform this noise a little bit. Abs time dot seconds times, I don't know. Let's just leave it the way it is. There you go. So times 0.1. Now we get a kind of subtle color shifting thing going on. Um, and I mean, like, there's a lot you can do with this type of effect. But I really like this for graphic design specifically. But another really cool thing is, this changes. You don't have to like repulse the feedback. So if I just like grow or shrink it, see, it just like kind of happens. Um, and even this spread and shrink, I could bring it down real low. Um, yeah, etc. So it's a pretty sweet effect. I really like this one. And actually, I'm pretty much going to leave it there. I don't think I have anything else to add at this point. Hopefully, that's helpful. All right, bye now.